Hello everyone. So this tutorial will be covering basically how to take your brand new plasticity file and converting it into a game asset basically. So in this process, I'm going to bring this down from like 652,000 polys down to about 97,000. I could have gone a little bit lower than that, I'm sure, and I could have done a lot more detail, but this is more of understanding of the concept itself. So depending on each object, what you're working, it might change or go up or down. Just depends on what you're working on. So I'm going to basically now go over what I did to export this model out. All right, here we go. All right, so one of the things I've done to bring it into 3DCoat is I've laid the object on its side, basically. The reason I've done that is because normally we have the object standing straight up, but with 3DCoat, it actually has a different angle when bringing it in. So that way the object is exactly straight up. I just feel it's easier to do this first in Plasticity than bring it into there and then try to do it there. However, it's just a simple thing. You just rotate it from the base 90 degrees down. That's as simple as it gets. So let's go ahead and go through the process of exporting now. So if I'm selecting all this stuff with the object selection mode and I go over here to the export, I normally would go like really high on my density. First, I'm going to call this whatever, grenade new to whatever. And that's the first part of it. So once I get in here, you're going to normally have this set at tries is the common. And this is normally set at 0.5. And these things are not normally selected at all. This is the common setup that is given to us normally. So as you can see, it's a lot of triangles here, a lot of detail. It's just a mess. And it's not really, doesn't do well when you try to bring it into Blender just like this. So I always have a tendency to go in gods in most of my exporting options. And I normally bring this down to like 1 as my common thought process. And I normally bring this up to like 0.001 to 3, somewhere in there. And I normally bring this up to like 0.01. That's pretty much my common setup for the standard of setting something up in Blender without concerning about trying to make it into a game asset. Because at this point, in most of the time, I really don't have a real care of the amount of faces or polys. I just want a really smooth, clean looking object when it comes to my rendering. But for making a game asset, you don't want to have it chaotic, so much stuff that it's just out of control. So this is a good understanding of that. So for something like this, I would not send it out this way. I would be like more like 0.1. So there'd be a lot more squares in the separation here. Again, this depends on your size of your object that you're bringing in. You got to kind of weigh this by the size, but this is like 0.1, the separation between this line and this line. And that gives you a pretty good indication. I also would probably go to like 0.5 here. I think it's way too busy. And it's just a lot of playing around to get what you want. But again, even with this, there's still quite a bit of detail here. So anyway, now to make it a game asset, this is what I've learned. It seems like a good setting for me. I go to like basically 10 here. And normally I would never go that low, but that's kind of where I thought this was a better option. And at the same time, I wanted to make sure the min width was also at a good number. Now, in what I've done earlier was I actually had this at quite a bit. I think it was at 0.05, but I mean, we could probably get right away with 0.07, somewhere there. And again, you want to make sure that everything has a nice edge to it. Again, your object's going to be a game asset, right? So you don't have to worry as much about as clean and crisp detail that you would have for like advertisement. But for something like this, so one of the things that kind of also drove the detail that I was doing was this thing here. I want to make sure it's nice and round. So that is round there. It looks good. And again, it has to do with this here. Now, I could potentially go to, instead of 0.1, 0.1. I could go to 0.2, for instance. And this will bring the squares much bigger. And honestly, I think that would have been fine with my export. And again, I would not be on ingons, I'd be on quads. So keep that in mind. And normally I do quads just because I want to see what this thing's looking like. It just has a lot better understanding. Now, with the quads, I still think that this is, for instance, when I do quads, this still looks like a good amount of detail. And everything else looks pretty good. This is maybe a little too far apart. I would probably dial that in a little bit more. Like instead of that, I'll probably do 1.5, something like that. And just gives you more detail. I think my setting was 0.07. Yeah, 0.07. So again, just too much detail, really. This was I think it was 3. So that's the difference of what I had set up. Again, the more you add, the more roundness you have on your corners and stuff. And normally a game asset, you don't have to worry too much about that because normally something like this is so small. In the game, you wouldn't really notice that detail. So anyway, that's just a great understanding of, what to look for when you're trying to create something like this. And once you find that you dial this in really good on the amount of detail, just hit the OK button. And then the next steps, I'll be taking this into 3DCoat. And there I'll kind of cover some of the basics of how to bring it in and a good way to do it without having problems. So, okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. So I thought I'd show another alternative to bring in your objects and actually convert them from your basic modeling from Plasticity into like a game model. And the game model is, instead of just going straight to Blender, I'm going to take it right from Plasticity right into 3DCoat. So this is another alternative instead of having to create UV maps and do all that work behind the scenes and all that time just to bring it in 3DCoat and have it do its magic for you. It's just another option. This is one of my techniques that I use personally to get things done quickly. Anyway, I'm using 3DCoat 2024. Not the latest version, but it's close. So anyway, here we go. So I'm going to go into 3DCoat and I'm going to select this Paint UV Mapped Mesh per pixel. That's what I want. I don't want to change anything to do with the model. I just want to bring it in. I've already converted it from Plasticity into a lower face object. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and now bring it in. So the object that I created was grenade to 3DCoat, OBJ. And I'm going to say open. And when I bring this in, it says the square set, and it basically is telling you that's going to be a lot of problems if you try to keep the actual existing UV map, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to let them do the UV map for me. So I'm going to select Blender. I'm going to say no subdivision. I do not want to add more detail to a game model. Auto mapping, yes, I want them to do the auto mapping for me. And smoothing, I definitely want to change this. I want to make this smooth, keep edges. So basically when I create the actual UV map, it'll be much smoother when I bring it back over into like Blender or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and select smooth, keep edges. I'm also going to select keep treat materials as separate textures, which I want. I also want to make sure that I also select auto smoothing groups. Anything over 30 degrees is what I want them to smooth, basically in the look of the actual object. So it's not going to change the actual model itself. It's just going to make the model look more rounded. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the default. I'm going to change this to 4096 so I have a little bit more detail on my texture map. And that's what I'm going to go with. So go ahead and hit OK. And it'll take a minute. If you don't do those couple things there, your model will be more of an edgy, kind of, it just doesn't look very good. And then when you try to texture it, you're still going to have all that texturing not look very smooth. So this is my process to make it look better before you make it into a game asset. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to pause it while this is optimizing. All right, so here we go. So the model came in really nice. It looks very smooth. And again, this is the object that we saved out earlier in Plasticity, which has less faces and edges. I think it's like 91,000 polygons or triangles compared to what I had before. It was like 800,000. And so now I can take this object and start mapping it. So I'm going to do this actually in 3DCoat just to give it a nice texture map. And let's go ahead and start proceeding. So first I'm going to go to the file and then go to edit over here. And I want to calculate occlusion. This helps add in the shadows and things like that on this object. And just makes the object look that much better when you actually get ready to send it out. As you see that this is your UV map over here that's already been created. This will update this map here with the actual occlusion map. See, there we go. So everything that's kind of like hidden or in the dark, it creates a dark section in that area. And that's more realistic to the lighting that you're going to be seeing in your object. So I'm going to go and edit again, and this time calculate curvature. And I'm just going to pick sphere and hemisphere and say, okay. You could do sphere if you want. I'd like to do both. Just my preference, I guess. So let's do a light baking process right now. And once it's done, it's going to add in some more lighting to it. And that's pretty much it. Hit the OK. So now it locked this ambient occlusion, which is what we want. I'm going to go ahead and start off right away with a new layer. So I'm going to click on this plus right here. And I'm going to call this my map, just so for reference. And this is where I'm going to do most of my texturing. So I'm going to go over here. Now, within 3DCoat, you have basically the default textures that come with it. You also have metal textures and other things you can download. I've downloaded quite a few things with this program. All right, so I'm going to start texturing this grenade. And again, it looks really good. If you see the actual view here, I can go to showing basically the actual wireframe. And this is the lower poly object that was created for this exercise. So now that I got that, I could go back and unhide that. I don't need to see wireframes. And we can start adding in now some textures. So let's go ahead and start working this. So I have this all set up with layer. I'm actually on my map, which is what I wanted. And I'm going to start adding textures here. So I went to the actual paint section and I created this kind of a bluish color. And I can go in here now and I can change it anywhere I want. I can make it darker, lighter. This is a good representation right here of what that's going to look like. That's more of like a brownish blue. And again, you can just vary your colors wherever you want. And I kind of like this. And something else to note is that I don't have my preview on here, but if you change the actual, you can actually go in here and just look at the detail of the map itself here by just scrolling here. And if I basically use the fill tool, so underneath the fill tool, you can select different things with the fill tool. So if you want to actually go up here, you can have it select the box. We can select, just actually highlight everything and fill everything, or just a section of it with these different tools. So I'm just going to go with this for now. I'm going to click on this and get the first texture lined up. I kind of want to see how this looks. Now, this has a nice look to it, of course. I do like the edge wear. It does look nice. And I'm only selecting this section here. Now I can go in and change some things like the degree or the actual edge. So if I change some of this stuff, right now I can't really see it. I got to figure out how to reconnect my viewport on the actual preview window. But for now, I'm just going to see what I can do here. So if I could bring this down just a little bit more, I can, again, click on it and see what happens. It just gives it more variations, right? And if I go in here to the degree and I bring, actually on this degree, if I bring this up like to 5, this becomes very like bland. So let's see what that looks like. Click on this. It's actually, it adds way more than I want in the way of, the edge wear. So that the higher that is, the more it pulls it up higher. So I want to go back down to like very small. You just select it here to kind of see what that background will look like. But if you select it now, this will be a much better outcome. I think the other one was way too high. I think maybe a little bit more. I just want to make sure that some of the stuff has some edge wear, just so it looks nicer. Just give it a little bit. I think I'll dial that in just a little bit higher, maybe 1.17, and let's try that. And you're seeing it right along this edge here, which is nice. Here, I think that looks good. It's not everywhere. It's just variety. I don't want to overdo it. Okay, cool. So there's that. There we go. That top, whatever you bring in, will kind of take over the whole thing in a sense. You could also change your amount of overall cavity right here, and that really makes a difference as well. I kind of like the fact that this is bumpy. That's kind of what I wanted. So if I just bring this down a little bit more, it actually makes that a lot more bumpier, and that took away the bumpiness. So I definitely want to bring this cavity up a little bit more. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, there we go. So yeah, this adds a lot more roughness to the top of the paint. And it kind of takes this thing right here and adds it. Now, what I can do, cancel, what I can do is add this more of metal. So this way, this edge wear will be metal. And that would look really nice. I think if I just bring this down a little bit more, let's try this. And again, I put metal on this wear. See, that looks a lot better. It gives like the look of it's cutting through the paint, and you're seeing the metal underneath. And I think that looks really good. I think what I could do is kind of bring this down a little bit more. Try this again. And again, I could bring this up a little bit more. See what happens with that. That gives a lot more wear. Now, I think it's a little too much. I didn't want that much. So what we can do is we can dial that down just by bringing down the degree. So if I go down to this, we can just do that. And we could also take away some of the depth. And we could also lower this down just a little bit. I think that's just a little too high now. So let's go and select it. There we go. That's actually coming out a lot better. It's dirty. It actually has some grime. We could add in a dirt layer to this as well. So that's something we can definitely do. So now that we've got this kind of set up, I'm going to, I think I might just bring this down a smidgen more. Like 5 something. And let's hit the, again, fill. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So what I can do now is save this. That was my layer. Let's go back to the actual paints. Select it. Again, select this paint. And let's go and hit it. There we go. So that's it for that. So now that we've gotten that, let's go and continue to build this out. So I'm going to also now texture these 2 sections here. So let's go ahead and go to the metals. This is going to be more of a nice metal that looks like it's part of the base of this thing. The problem is, let's just cancel this. Get a better, let's select this metal light. Get this. And we can actually just go here. So this is your dirt color. This is your metal color. And this is other things. It's fine to have dirt. I might make this a little lighter for the dirt. I think here I'm going to go ahead with a little bit darker. Go more over this way. A little more of a bluish dark. So something like this. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and hit these with this new material. I think that looks much better. I'm also going to do the same thing on here. I want the same texture on this. So I want to do a different texture here. So a couple more things we can do here. First of all, that I got that. So I want to change the texture here as well. We could add the same texture to this as well. Good. Let's go ahead and save this. All right, let's do some more. I'm going to do more of a chrome look. Actually, I'm going to use this one here for this, but I'm going to change the color. So let's go ahead and do this. Duplicate. And change this color to a red. So something over in this quadrant. Make this a little bit darker red. Something like that. And the same thing here. Reddish metal. And now I can select this. There we go. It looks really nice. Very bright red. And we can save that. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to go ahead and again duplicate this, and duplicate again. And this time I'm going to do more of a gray. So let's go ahead and go with a gray. A light gray would be fine. And this one too. Like that. There we go. And that will look nice. Let's see what this looks like. Let's select this. And it is kind of definitely a little too dark in my opinion. I definitely want to bring that down a little bit. So let's go ahead and change the color a little bit. I want to make this 100% metal. Go definitely a lot lighter like that. This one too. More lighter. All right, so let's see what this looks like. And we could also bring down the roughness. I want this to be really shiny. It's a little too dark for me. Contrast back up. I think I'll take the depth down, this depth down. I'm taking the degree down. Bring this down a little bit on the cavity. I don't want a lot of cavity there. I want this to be more shiny. And it's looking better. I definitely want to bring this more to the white side because I think it's too dark. We can also solve that by just taking some of the reflection down a little bit. So we can bring this back up to like 34. Let's try that. It's fun on this angle. And we can do the same thing here. So I'm going to save this. All right, so let's go ahead and get a little closer to what we're doing here. Now I need to change these around a little bit. So let's go ahead and pick some more metals. I kind of want to go with this dark black. And I'm going to continue to use the fill. I'm just going to select each of these and basically add it. Actually, I kind of like this one. I think that one looked better on this piece here. So let's do that. There we go. Yeah, that looks a lot better. That looks a lot better. I think adjust this a little bit more. So in here, Smart Material Editor, I'm going to add in roughness, bring it up a little bit more. Just down a little bit. I don't want a lot of edge wear. There we go. See, it's still too much. I think it's because of this. I take this away. There we go. And if I add more roughness to it, that would look better. Yeah, that looks better. A little bit of wear, tear, different color for sure. All right, so let's focus on this other stuff. Let's select another metal. Go with a +2. First metal. Now, okay, so in here, I kind of like this nice and shiny one. See what that looks like. So it's gonna, yeah, there we go. I think that looks nice. So I'm gonna select each of these and basically paint them. These as well. It doesn't take long to come up with a nice looking object as you continue to drive this stuff. Definitely need to go backwards. Let me do these two. Make sure they're the right texture. Same with these. Still got to do these little metal pieces. Okay, so I got two more objects to really work on, and we can go back in here now. I really like that look on that metal. I'm going to continue to use that, but in a different way. So now if I go back in here, that selected was this one. I'm going to right click on it, duplicate it. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to change this one. Double click it. Let's bring this darker. Again, this is just a real simple metal. Back over here and a little bit to the right there. And that's a nice dark color. And I think that'll be great. So save this one. And let's go and start working these. So each of these. I also want to do something here. So it's really 3 sections I still got to deal with. Make sure you get the eyedropper, the target on the right place. All right, so there's that. And now I want to also take care of this. I kind of wanted to make this a nice blue. This is a kind of a nice sharp red. Do something similar to this. So let's go ahead and do that. So here I created this blue and we'll select it. And there we go. It's a nice metal blue. A little bit of worn. All right, so next thing that I'm going to work on is adding in a emission texture. So let's go and hit the plus here, and we can actually say click on the emission and say emission. And here, I'm going to make sure that I select this, and I'm going to make that into emission. So use as emissive. Cool. And now we can go in. I'm going to go basically to the paint. Select this. And in here, I'm going to select a basic simple paint. So I'm going to do a plus here. Say red paint. Okay, hit OK. There we go. That plus here, I'm going to make this red. Just like that. Hit red, hit OK. Put it as the emissive, so it should be fine. Now we can go in and just add these red sections to each of these. So select each of these. And we can actually add in more brightness to the emissive material in like Blender or something like that. So all the way around, we have basically 16 of these to do, or actually 32. Anyway, there's 8 sections of these times 4 sections. So it's quite a few. This one here. A few more. They're hard to get to. All right, so that's it for that. Yeah, one thing we can do here is, of course, we don't have to use metal. We could make this into like a plasticky type thing. I think that would be kind of cool looking, personally. Instead of all metal, I think we could try that. Let me do a new material. Take a second. So first I'll save that one. So I'm going to redo a couple things here just so it look a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to like a black plastic, and I've actually added in some colors here. So this is a black, real simple plastic color, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Smart Editor. I'm just going to add in a little bit more detail to this. I'm going to make this a little bit more shiny, a little bit more roughness to this. Definitely 0% on that. And I think that looks fine. I'll just bring this down a little bit. Now I'm just going to go ahead and hit that. Well, actually, I'm on erase right now. Let's go to fill, and this is selected. And I think that plastic looks nice. A couple of little issues with the faces there, but that's okay. All right, cool. So that's that. And now I'm going to do the blue. So I'm going to say that. Then again, select this, hit this. And this is going to be more of a, I'm going to make this more of a metal blue, like that. I think that'll look nice with that. Kind of goes with the red. And we'll click it right in there. And now it has a nice shiny bluish color. That's simple. Just a few more things. Thought it'd be nice to make this more of a kind of a color that's kind of the opposite of this blue, which would be more of a yellow. Just think that look a little bit better. And I'm good with the red in those little sections there, but for now, I'm going to look at changing that to a yellow. So, all right, so I'm going to change this to a yellow color. So let's do that. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to go to this metal here. I'm going to change this. So I'm going to duplicate this like that. Simple as that. I'm going to right click or double click it. And I'm going to go ahead and make this more of a yellow. A really nice bright yellow. Again, I don't want this to be too metalness. I think this one I'll take as well and make this yellow. And then I'm going to see how this is going to look. I might want to bring this down as well. Actually, I think, yeah, there's your color right there, right? So if I bring it down a little bit, I think it'll be fine with that. I don't want to make it more shiny. I think that'll look nicer. Bring this down, bring this down. Something like that would be good. All right, let's try this. Yeah, I think that looks good. It's kind of a metal yellow. And down just a smidgen more here. There. All right, I think that looks better. Cool. Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that looks better. So I'm going to save this. So I've got that now. More of a yellowish color. I think that looks a little bit more like it belongs. I also think that this would be nicer with yellow as well. I think the blue is kind of a too sharp of a contrast between these two. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and use the same yellow. I'm going to select it, paint it, boom, done. I think that's a good understanding. Yeah, cool. So let's go ahead and now export this and I'll show you how to do that. So now we got this whole thing texture mapped. It's ready to go. I'm going to simply go to File, Export Objects and Textures. And in here, I'm going to basically put this wherever I want to take this to, of course. I'm going to put this in a folder. Okay, so I'm going to now export the textures. And it's going to the same folder. That's perfect. Let's call it main textures. And we'll also select this folder. Actually, we're just going to select the folder. And then we're going to call this main texture. And again, Splendor. I'm going to create some padding on this. I'm going to export UV sets. This tile's not going to do that. Use model name as textures. That's fine. All this is good. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going to change this to a Blender cycles to make it easier for my end. And right now I have the metalness, color albedo, roughness. This is the normal map. This is the emission map, and this is an ambient inclusion map if I want to use it. And it might be good to also have a bump map. So let's go ahead and add one more texture here. And again, I'm going to continue to use PNG. Go here. And we're going to look for bump. And what we can do is just use a displacement for that effect. So let's go up here, select displacement, edit that, form, emission, AO, and this will be, call this bump. With all signed. Yeah, I think that will be great. Okay, let's go ahead and say export. Everything's in the right place, so let's do it. Great, I think the file came out really nice. Okay, so I'm now going to be bringing this in here. So I'm going to go to import OBJ, the one that we just created. And this is the OBJ right here. And one thing I'm going to make sure is a little bit smaller because it comes in really big. So I'm going to go down to 0.1 and just import like with that size there. Cool. Now we can go to the side view here, and for some reason it raised it up quite a bit. Not sure why. We could fix that. Let's hit the G key on the Z here, bring it down, and we'll get to the floor here. Something like that. All right, so what I'm going to do here is, I'm not sure, yeah, it's pretty dark HDR file. I'm going to change that out right now. I just want to have something a little bit brighter. So I'm going to bring this down, open up a new HDR. I'm going to go with, some of these came from Materialworks. So I'm just going to go with that. I think I'm just going to go with this one. I like this one. It's not from Materialworks. This is from another source. But anyway, here's our file. You see, it's not exactly as you expect it to be. I'm going to also take this file right here, or this object, and move it up. So G on the Z, just to get it up to the base of this, like that. And one of the problems is that it doesn't come out over back the way it should. There's a couple things that are not right about this. So if you select this object, you'll see right away that we have, which is great, the main diffuse color is going straight to this. We don't have a metal map for some reason, even though we created one. We don't have a roughness, and we have a normal, and we have a specular, which we never did. So there's some issues with this for some reason on the cutover, but let's go ahead and fix those right now. So this is the roughness map, and the roughness map should be in the roughness area right here. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to take this. Okay, so the roughness goes there, which we got. Cool. Now we still need a metal. So let me copy this, duplicate this basically. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to open up. We did create a actual, this is actually main texture. Yeah, I got the wrong one. So let's go and do that again. Let's open main texture. And this will be the metal. So this one right here. We just did this one. So, okay, let's open this one. And now this can go to the metal. And I'm going to take away this RGB and make it into a non-color. So that's a couple things we need to do. This stays as a color. This is also non-color. So let's change that. Now this is also a non-color. All right, so we got it on normal map and we put it to 1. And that's really the basic setup here that we needed. Now, this is definitely going to work. So let's keep in mind that this is only a map that is, or this actual object is only 94,000 triangles. And it's only 53,000 faces. So if we look at this in edit mode, this is not really a lot of detail there. It's not. So this came out really nice. What we can do also is take away some of these lines. I think they cause some problems sometimes, but we could see what this looks like on the image map here. Then we can save it out again, but I think I'm okay with everything here. Just let's go back to object mode. And this is one easy way to make this look nice. One more thing with this object is I like to get these parts here, this emission. We don't have that set up for some reason. So again, let's bring this over, bring these up, and we're going to bring in an emission. So let's do that since we have it all set up already. Let's bring the color out, and we're going to add in the image texture. And this again will be open. I think the best way to do this, cancel, is let's just delete this piece. Let's just do a duplication of this. It's just easier. Everything's set up somewhat. Now I'm going to go in here and look for the emission. So we did an emission earlier. It's right here, emission. So that we want to open up image, and this one is going to drive the emission of this red lights here. Since we had it set up, we could also make this a strength of like 5 or something like that. There we go. Now we got the emission working with the actual game asset. So yeah, I hope this helps everybody understand how to take your model. Now, these are more of a shiny. This is fine. Yeah, everything looks good. I think we can do a quick test rendering of this to see what it looks like. All right, that is it for this video. Please subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.